Bob, the electric principal, and I spent 32 years in education, 15 of those as a principal. I've also spent the last 3 years in the automotive industry. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time today to talk to you about the crazy used car market for electric cars. And I mean crazy. So, what is going on? Well, let's talk about what's going on. First of all, we have some terrific tax breaks that are out there for new cars. And it's $7,500 on cars that are made in North America. And even if they aren't made in North America, if you do a lease, they'll build some of that tax credit into your lease. So that's kind of a workaround. You know, that was something that wasn't real apparent when the tax breaks first came out, but now it is. And it doesn't matter. You can go buy a car that's made in Korea or Japan or China, and you're able to get some of that tax break if you go via lease. But, you know, there's no such thing as a free lunch in this world, and for every action has an opposite and equal reaction. And that really impacts the price of used cars because let's say you've owned a really nice ID4 and you've had it for 3 years. And now you're ready to look at that new ID7 that's going to be coming in soon, or you're looking at even a new, American built ID4 with the new interior. Well, the problem is that when you come to trade in that car, the value of that car is greatly impacted by those tax breaks because you kind of got your gravy when you bought the car. You probably got a tax break, and that was great. You got your 7,500 or whatever it turned out to be. But the problem is you're going to lose some of that money when you trade your car in because let's say you trade it into the dealership. Well, now the dealership is going to put your 21 or 22 on the lot right next to a brand new ID4 or a brand new Ford Mach-E or whatever you're thinking about buying. And the dealer knows that a used car customer isn't going to pay a premium for that used car because they can just look across to the other side of the dealership where the new cars are and get a smoking hot deal of 12,500 off a new one in Colorado because we have an additional 5,000 from the state. California even has more, folks. Um, and so that's going to depress the used car market. So I thought a good way to talk about this and figure out is it worth buying a used car and how to buy a used car is to look at three of them. I'm going to look at three different used cars. And we're going to kind of look at what the new price for that car would be, what the tax break would be for that new car, and then let you make the decision whether it's worth buying that car. And I'm going to use real figures. I'm going to use figures that are posted on dealers' websites so that we're just not doing theoretical, we're doing the real thing. And we're going to start off with this beauty. This is a 21 Mach-E. Mach-E is a great car. It really is a very good car. And this one has 25,000 miles on it. And it's got an 88 kilowatt usable battery because the original owner paid 55,000 for this car. And maybe even a premium back in 21, I don't know. But paid 55,000 and 5,000 of that is a bigger battery. You know, a normal Mach-E just gets slightly over 200 miles. This one's going to get close to 280 in the real world. Um, and so it's a good deal. So we're going to start out with this car, take a little closer look at it, and take a look at what a new one would be going for and compare it to this car. And folks, I just love the interior on this car because I love the size of the screens. I love how the switches work. It's got a nice feel to it. And you know, buying a Mach-E is not a bad thing to do by any stretch of the imagination. I'd much rather have a Mach-E over a Tesla any day of the week. It's quieter, it's smoother, and the software is just as good, and you have over-the-air updates all the time. In almost every way, Ford's doing a great job. They're knocking it out of the park. And if you're in Colorado and you bought this car, which is selling for $56,500, that's the price on it. You know, you're going to save roughly $8,750 off that price, around 48 grand. That's what a new one would cost you in Colorado. You know, if you're not in Colorado, you're going to pay 51.5 for this car. Now, that used car is selling for just about $38,000 as a 21. And that's a substantial savings. I mean, we are talking a significant amount of money. If the choice was up to me, I'd buy the used Mach-E over this new one. Partly because I don't get the full tax rebate because the battery's made in Poland. That's one of the things that would make me think about that. So buying used is even a better value when you don't get the tax break. Um, and 38,000 for a car with 25,000 miles, to me, it's not even a contest. I'd go buy it. And you have to remember, buying a used electric car, my goodness, there's no oil changes, there's very few moving parts. The biggest issue you have with electric cars, to be quite frank, is the fact that modules or small electronic parts will give out, and usually that happens right away within the first couple of months. So I think once you get your electric car rolling, other than buying tires, my experience is of all the cars I've owned is they're fairly bulletproof. So in this case, I would not hesitate to buy this particular Mach-E used rather than buying new. And once again, that's just my opinion. You know, obviously you got to make up your own mind. I know people who will not buy a used car. They don't trust them. Somebody didn't like it. Something was wrong. You know, but in general, I find used cars aren't bad because, hey guys, used cars are so much better than when they were when I was growing up. Back in the 60s and 70s, if you got 100,000 on a car, you thought you were lucky. You thought you did a great job. Now, if you don't get 200,000 or 250,000, you think there's something wrong with the car because cars just are better made now in terms of longevity than they were back in the 1970s. So we're going to move on to my second example here, and that's a 22 Nissan Leaf SV Plus, which is a higher end car. It's a 22. It's got 14,300 miles on it. And this car has a range of about 215 miles. And most important for this vehicle is it's all Colorado. Obviously, one owner, no accidents, a super clean Carfax. Now, you know, when you start looking at the price of these, this car is listed $14,000 less than you could buy a new one for. Now in Colorado, not quite so much. It'll only be 9,000 because you can get a $5,000 tax credit from the state of Colorado. But the rest of you folks who don't live in states with individual tax credits for them, it's $14,000 less than a new one. Now recognize the new ones are out. They're going to be a little nicer. Nissan did a nice job with those cars. But let me clue you, for a used car, this is a great car if you don't need 300 miles of range. Really does a nice job. Um, you know, as far as would I buy one of these, I definitely consider it because, you know, the price of this car is about 25,500. That's what the dealership has it listed at. But you know what? If you get this for $25,000 or less, well, that's a great deal because then you qualify under federal law for buying a used car with a tax credit as long as you meet all the standards, which of course I'm not a lawyer. You need to look some of that up yourself, exactly what that would mean. But, you know, that's not a bad deal if you get a tax credit on top of paying $25,000 for this car. These car prices are depressed because of the tax break and because, of course, um, you know, we have Elon Musk dropping the price of his cars, particularly the Model Y, which ended up suppressing all the cars. Strangely enough, when you look online at our local Nissan dealer, they're actually almost charging $1,000 extra still to buy a brand new car. I personally think that's ridiculous in this market. And that if you walk into a dealership right now and they're charging a surplus for electric cars, don't go for that. But let's take a quick look at the inside of this car and see what you think. I'm now in the inside of this Leaf, and it's really pretty nice, guys. You know, it is not bad. You know, it does come with cloth seats, as you can see in the interior. The things I really like about this car, even though it's inexpensive, it still comes with a overhead view of the car. I'm the world's worst parker. I love overhead views in cars, and I just think they should be part of every car that's sold today. And this one, even at 25 grand, if you could get it for that, it would be well worth it because it's a great in-town car. And this would be perfect for a kid to drive to school or zip around town. And so when I'm looking at this car at the current price of 25,000, I think it's a really good value, even over buying a new one. Hey, and finally, we're headed over to my last comparison car. We're going to compare this 2019 e-tron Premium Plus with a new Q8 e-tron, which is just a new badging for the e-tron. And this car is a 2019. It has 18,000 miles on it. You know, it is a car that has just a little more than 200 miles of range, which is a little bit of a drawback, and that's based on its age. The car, when it was new, sold for around $75,000. And now this car, with 18,000 miles on it, is 45,000 bucks, which is not a bad deal. You know, the e-tron is a robust car. It's got a very quick charging speed of 150 kilowatts. Very nice. You know, you might have a little shorter range, just about 200, but that charging speed goes deep into the pack, up to almost 80%. So it really charges much faster. You'll have cars that charge faster. People talk about a Tesla charging faster. Not really, because that charger starts out fast, but by the time you get 50% of the way through the pack, this e-tron is plowing right past you. Tortoise in the hare. You know, the car, for the most part, is too expensive for any kind of use tax credits. But if you want a luxury car, this is the way to go. Let me show you a couple things. We're just taking a look at the interior of this car, and you know, these cars, uh, especially the earlier ones, came with an interior that you could only get on a $100,000 Audi. They really, really made them beautiful. The leather's gorgeous, heated and cooling seats. I mean, it's got everything you'd want. Beautiful wood dash. And I still think the Audi infotainment system is the best out there. Simple, fast, easy to use. So one of the things you're going to find the new one does much better than this car is range. The range on that car is about 290 miles versus about 210 on this one. But other than that, you're going to find a lot of similarities between these cars. It just isn't as efficient or quite as powerful. But I just love the infotainment system. I love the real buttons that you can press. I love that this car comes with 3 screens, not just 1 or 2. So I'm finishing up here a little bit talking about Audis. This is the new one. This is a Q8. Got a giant battery in it, 119 kilowatts, I believe. And that's why the price has gone up. You're getting a lot more battery. The old one has just a little over 92 kilowatts of battery. So I'm in the inside now of the Audi e-tron Q8. Same interior, really. You know, not much has changed. This looks mighty familiar to a guy who owned one of these. And you've even got the wood trim, only it's a darker wood. Gorgeous car, very convenient. And they've made a few updates, but nothing major, nothing that's going to be a problem. And you've got the wonderful Audi infotainment system, which is really easy to use. Far better than any VW infotainment system. You get what you pay for. It really is improved. And you can see with this particular car right now, when I'm looking at it, I have got 265 miles of range on this car right now. And the battery's pretty close to 100% here. And that's the range that it's given me. In real world, it will be more than that. Because remember, what happens is these cars sit here for a while. People run them for a half hour, 45 minutes, setting them up. And During that time, the car's really not getting any miles on it. You're just using electricity without getting any mileage, so your mileage drops. The mileage meter drops. But this thing is a beast. Large battery, and it would be hard for me to make up my mind because the range on this car is almost 300 miles. And with the bigger battery, I think you're getting a lot for your money. Now this one is well north of $90,000. This thing has everything under the sun. I don't want to lean against it because it's too nice a car. But, you know, this decision for me would be a little harder because I'm a performance guy. And obviously it's a lot more than 45,000. But this car, the way I look at it, is kind of future proof. You know, we're almost at that 300-mile range. You've got very fast charging speeds with this car. It's super luxurious. It's got everything you'd ever want. And I think this is close enough to the new generation Audis that when the next series comes out, you won't think you're losing much. And you know, I think that if you go into a dealership, you might work on getting a deal because once again, expensive cars don't get that tax break. You'd be surprised how many people, well, maybe you wouldn't, that really matters more than anything else. And I gotta say, you know, I've owned all kinds of cars. My favorite car I have ever owned is an Audi e-tron. You know, no car had a better ride. It was super performance oriented because I had the sport pack version. And so this one, you know, the other two cars I've showed you, I'd pull the trigger and buy the used ones, even over the new ones. On this, I know it's a lot more money, but you know what? That's the kind of car that I might think about spending that kind of money on. If I had that to spend, it wasn't going to impoverish my family. I would think about buying a Q8 e-tron. And you know, basically, you'll have to drive both the new and the old version of a car when you're considering it to see if those updates, to see what they've done to the car, really makes it worth more money. In this case, I think it might. I think the battery alone is worth a lot to me. You know, if you go out and buy yourself you know, a nice pickup truck that's electric now, you're going to spend pretty close to the money you're going to spend on this Audi. And this is going to have a lot better ride than the average pickup truck. Now, Rivian is an average. It's a great vehicle. But really, if I didn't have to throw stuff in the back of a Rivian and I'm just going for pure comfort, I would go for this over the Rivian. And I've driven both. And I say that with all sincerity because I think the e-tron is a wonderful car. And if I didn't have this kind of money to spend, I wouldn't hesitate to buy the $45,000 one at all, even though it's got a less range. So that kind of concludes our talk about new versus used. I'm just going to reiterate the point again that, hey, the tax rebates and tax credits have really impacted the value of used cars. And so they make new cars more affordable. But now, if you're in the used car market, they also make used cars more affordable. There's no doubt that electric car prices have been suppressed. The big negative is, if you're thinking about trading your car in, you know, you got to think twice. You might want to hang on to that car and just get the use out of it and not take the loss of depreciation that has come along with the tax credits. It's just simple economics. And if you're buying a new car, take those new tax credits to the bank, enjoy your car. But remember, when you turn around and try to sell it, it's not going to be worth what an ICE car would be worth selling that used, just simply because the tax credits are going to suppress the value of your trade-in value. So once again, thank you so much for joining my channel. I love having you here. I'm going to do my next video I'm going to do is going to be a little bit on 3.5 for VW to talk about what that new software does, how that's going to compare a little bit to 4.0, which I haven't seen yet, but I know enough about it to be dangerous, as they say. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about, in the future, leasing versus buying a car. And I'm going to run some real world figures for you on leasing or buying a car. And to be honest, I'm going to try to go to a couple dealerships to do that, to see what they offer me in terms of a lease price versus a new price, and see where that puts me, see what that would do for me, and then pass that information on to you, because hopefully you'll find it useful. So happy driving. I love electric cars. If you haven't got one, go and drive one. You're going to never go back. I love these vehicles, and they're superior to every way to regular cars, I believe, except for one factor, and that's range. And boy, are we catching up in that department. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next week.